Here's the thing about AI and marketing. Everybody is under pressure to use it to move faster, create more content, get more posts out, write more emails, build more campaigns, and generally keep the machine fed. And I get it because that's right up my street too. Because when AI is used properly, it can save a ridiculous amount of time and it can help you take an idea that is sitting in your head in a half messy, not fully informed way and push it into something that is better and faster than staring at a blank screen and wondering whether LinkedIn is worth the emotional damage. But here's the problem. A lot of what is being published now is starting to look and feel like AI slop. It is technically spot on. It is usually all spelled correctly. The grammar is lovely. It has a neat little structure. It probably has a call to action at the end. I mean, what more could anybody ask for? But it does not feel like it comes from a real person with a real opinion or experience or anything, someone with anything useful to say. And I'm not sitting here on some AI moral high ground pretending I've not done this myself, because I absolutely have. And I think a lot of us saw the opportunity with AI and quite rightly thought, brilliant, this is going to help us move faster. It's going to help us get our ideas out. It's going to help with the content and the emails and the blogs and the captions and all the stuff that takes time and eats into your day. But I think what has actually happened is a lot of people have gone from AI can help me create better content to AI can actually help me create the content for me. And those are not the same thing. Because if you use AI badly, it will help you publish generic content much faster. If you use it properly, it probably does not reduce the work to nothing. It makes it just slightly quicker, and it definitely makes the process easier, but you still have to think, edit, challenge, add your own examples, put your own language back in, and decide whether the thing actually sounds like you. That is the bit that people sometimes miss. And good AI assisted content still needs human judgment. So today I want to show you how to audit the content you've already got, how to spot the signals that make it feel too AI generated, and how to use AI properly going forward so it helps you sharpen your thinking rather than flatten your voice. I'll also give you the exact prompt you can use to run your own quick content audit, because this does not need to be complicated. You can literally take your last 5 or 6 LinkedIn posts, put them into ChatGPT or Claude, and ask it to show you where your content is too published, too samey, too generic, or missing the human proof that actually makes people trust you. Because the point is not to stop using AI. The point is to stop publishing content that looks like it has gone through some kind of AI washing machine and come out that lovely clean and smooth, but yet completely forgettable. So the first thing I would do is audit what you've already got. And I do not mean some kind of overcomplicated, consultant heavy audit where you need a 47 tab spreadsheet and 6 stakeholder interviews and a dashboard that nobody opens after a couple of days. I mean something much more practical than that and less time consuming. So take your last 5 or 6 LinkedIn posts or your last month of content if you want to go a bit deeper, and put it all in one place. Then read it as though you're a potential client who has never met you before, and ask yourself honestly, does this sound like me or us as a business? Not, is it grammatically correct? That's not what you're interested in. Not, does it mention the right service or does it have the right call to action? Those things matter, of course. Of course they do, but they're not the first question that you're trying to answer here. The first question is whether the content sounds like it came from a real person with a real point of view, or whether it sounds like it came out of the great beige soup of the internet, because that is the audit. You're looking for the places where your voice has been flattened. You're looking for phrases you would never actually say out loud. You're looking for claims that sound nice but don't mean anything. They're a bit up in the air. You're looking for posts that are technically fine but completely forgettable, sort of those beige posts. And that is the strange thing with poor AI content. A lot of it is not obviously bad. It doesn't stand out as being obviously bad, but it's not obviously good either. It's not full of spelling mistakes. The content's not wrong. You're not giving false guidance. It's just too smooth, too safe, and too dull. And dull content does not announce itself as broken. It just quietly does nothing. It doesn't get engagements, doesn't get likes, doesn't get shares. It's dull. One of the biggest giveaways of AI content today is homogeneous sentence structure. So ignore the word homogeneous, really. And I do not want to get too deep on this because it's really what it means is that everything has the same rhythm, the same length, and the same neat little pattern. You will see it all over LinkedIn. A post will say something like, if they're talking in a sentence, they'll talk about your phrases, full stop, your metaphors, full stop, your opinions, full stop, in a short little vertical line. Or it'd be your story, your voice, your value. And we've all seen it. And sometimes that structure can work, but when it appears again and again and again across posts and captions and carousels, it really does start to feel very artificial. Because that is not how we speak in real life. We don't do staccato sentences. In real life, we don't talk in perfectly little trimmed sentences. We speak in sentences that move around a bit. We use commas, we add thoughts halfway through. We say things like, I get it, or that's right up my street, or come on. We've all seen this because that's everyday language. And that is the language that needs to be translated onto our social media if we want our content to feel like us. So when you audit your content, look at the rhythm, but do not just look at one post in isolation because one post might be fine. What you really want to know is whether a pattern is starting to appear across your content, where the same phrases keep coming back, the same neat structures keep appearing, and the same polished but slightly lifeless rhythm starts creeping back into everything that you're publishing. That is usually a sign that AI has been allowed to tidy the personality out of it. And that matters because LinkedIn is getting noisier. You're competing with even more people using lots of AI content. As I've said, there's lots of AI content appearing everywhere. And some platforms now are actually penalizing the content. But the outcome's the same. You're just sounding the same as everybody else. It's much easier to ignore you. Specific content creates trust between you and your potential audience. Now, the quickest practical thing you can do is use AI as the mirror before you use it as the pen. That is probably the line I would remember from this whole thing. Use AI as the mirror before you use it as the pen, because most people go straight to the writing stage. And that's how it typically works is they open ChatGPT or Claude or whatever tool you're using, and they say, write me a LinkedIn post about AI in marketing. And then they wonder why it sounds like every other LinkedIn post about AI in marketing. So before you ask it to write anything new, ask it to analyse what you've already published. Copy your last 5 or 6 posts into ChatGPT or Claude and use this prompt, which I'm about to get you now. So if you want to pause, grab a pen and paper. I'm going to paste in my last 6 LinkedIn posts. Please analyse them as a content and tone of voice audit. I do not want you to rewrite them just yet. I want you to identify whether they show signs of generic, over-polished or AI-assisted content. Please look for repeated phrases or wording, homogeneous sentence structure where the rhythm, length, or pattern feels too samey, short staccato sentence patterns that do not sound like natural speech, generic marketing language that could belong to any business, claims without proof, examples, numbers or lived experience, overly polished wording that removes personality, repeated structures such as your X, your Y, your Z, missing opinion, judgment or point of view, phrases that sound like common AI put, and any parts that would feel stronger if they were written in a more conversational human tone. For each issue, please give me the exact line or phrase that creates the issue, explain why it weakens the content, and suggest a more natural alternative that keeps the meaning but sounds more human. At the end, give me the top 3 patterns I need to fix, the phrases I should stop using, the strongest parts of my natural voice that I should use more often, and a practical checklist I can use before publishing future posts. That is a really useful exercise because it stops you guessing. It gives you a pattern. If the AI says you keep using words like unlock or elevate or revolutionize or empower or transform and seamless, then you know these words need to be challenged. If it says your posts keep using the same 3-part structure, then the issue is the rhythm. If it says you're making claims without proof, then the problem is not better writing, it's that you've got to start providing evidence. And if it says your posts are polished but not very distinctive, that is probably the most useful warning of all, because polished content is forgettable and it's everywhere now. That's where you end up in the beige zone. And once you're in the beige zone, the algorithm is not really your biggest problem. The bigger problem is that people have no reason to remember you. So when they see you, they'll scroll straight past you. The next thing to look at is whether your content has a real opinion. And this is really important because this is where a lot of AI content falls down. AI is super trained to be helpful, balanced, and reasonable, which is useful in plenty of situations, but it is not always useful in marketing, because good marketing often requires a position, and not just a safe position. It has to be an opinion. It needs to say, this is what we believe, this is what we think people are getting wrong, and this is what we would do instead. Nobody needs to hear another post saying AI saves time, consistency matters, or businesses need to understand their audience. I mean, yes, it's lovely, but we all know this. The question is, what do you actually really think? For example, AI can help businesses become more efficient. I mean, that's true, but it's also a snooze fest. A better version would be, AI will not fix weak marketing, it's just going to help you publish more weak marketing faster. That is a point of view. It is still practical. It is not controversial just for the sake of it, but it gives people something to react to because it says something. So one of the best things you can do is create a point of view bank. And this does not need to be complicated either, and it doesn't need to take you a huge amount of time. You just need a place where you can capture what you believe, what you're tired of seeing, and what you think businesses should do instead. I mean, for example, for me, I hate it when I get an email saying, last 2 spaces left at a webinar, and we all know they've got more than that. So every time you find yourself going forward saying the same thing again, write it down. That is usually your best content. The sentence you say for the 10th time that week or this week is often a sign there's a real market problem behind it. The next thing to look at is your proof. AI is very good at making claims, but it is much less good, pardon my grammar, at making these claims feel earned. That is why so much AI generated content sounds impressive, but a bit hollow. It will say, we help ambitious businesses scale with confidence. Fine, so what? How are you doing it? Who did you help? What changed between before you going in to after you going in and helping the client? What was the big problem before? What did you notice that the client had missed? You do not need a full case study every time, but you do need evidence. You do need to show your experience. You need a real client example, a client situation, a number, a quote, a before and after, or even just a pattern you have seen after doing the work for long enough. Instead of saying many businesses struggle with inconsistent marketing, you could say, we reviewed one SME's LinkedIn activity and found they had posted 42 times in 3 months, but only 6 posts clearly linked back to what they actually sell. Or it could be only 6 posts weren't fully engaged with. That is not a consistency problem, that is a clarity problem. And that feels much stronger because it has detail behind it. It shows you have seen the problem in the wild, and people resonate with that. It doesn't then therefore feel like somebody's teaching you a load of theory. So how do you fix this going forward? And this is what I've done myself. So I'm telling you how I've fixed my content. The first thing is to stop asking AI to write from nothing. That is where the beige begins. Start with your thinking. Use your voice notes, open your phone and talk through the idea for 2 or 3 minutes. Say what's actually annoying you, say what you've noticed, say what clients are asking, and say the thing you would actually say on a call, and do not try to sound polished or impressive. Just talk. Then transcribe it using a tool like Otter, Descript, Riverside, Fireflies, or even the transcription on your phone. Now you have raw material that sounds like just like you. And that is the difference. You're no longer asking AI to invent your thinking. You're actually giving it your thinking and asking it to help you shape it. So the whole prompt changes. Instead of saying, write me a LinkedIn post about AI content, what you're actually going to say is, here is a broadly rough draft of me talking through X idea. What I want you to do is to turn this into a LinkedIn post, but keep my phrasing, my rhythm, my examples, and my point of view. Do not make it too polished. Do not use short staccato sentences. Keep the flow of the argument. Remove repetition, but do not remove personality, because you absolutely want to keep that. And after it gives you the draft, don't just copy and paste that, because there's more work to be done. Ask it which lines still sound like generic AI. Then ask, where have you made this too polished? And ask, where have you removed the strongest opinion? That is how you use AI properly and retain you within it. You're not asking it to become the writer, you're asking it to become the editor, the challenger, and the organizer of your thinking. And that is the most important part. And this is why, if you're using AI properly, it may not take 2 seconds to create a good post. That is probably the wrong expectation. It might still take time, maybe not as long as writing the whole thing from scratch yourself, but it still takes thought, because you still need to bring the idea, the opinion, the proof, the example, and the judgment. AI can absolutely speed up the shaping. It can help you organize that messy, chaotic middle. It can take a rough transcript and make it easier to use, but it cannot do the whole human bit for you. It cannot slot in on your behalf. And if you let it, that is usually where the content starts to sound a bit empty. So once you've done the audit, the point is not to throw everything out and start again, because for most of us, that's not realistic, and nor is it necessary. What you're really looking for are the places where the content has become too polished or too samey or too detached from how you would normally speak on a day-to-day basis. Maybe minus the swear words. You might notice the same phrases appearing again and again, or a rhythm that feels too neat, or posts that make a claim but do not give the reader any proof, example, or lived experience behind it. And once you spot, the fix is not to ask AI to make it more human, because that usually just gives you a slightly warmer version of the same problem. What I would do is put the human overlay back in. That means bringing back your natural language, your rhythm, your examples, your opinion, and your proof, not as a neat little checklist that gets stapled on to the end, but as the actual substance of the content. Because that is the bit AI cannot do properly on its own. It can tidy the writing, it can structure your thought, it can help you with all of that. It can also help you get from a rough idea to something usable much, much faster. But it should not be allowed to sand down the very things that make people recognize you, which is the way you explain things, the judgment you've built from years of experience, the examples you naturally reach for, and the bits of language that sound like something you would actually say. Because if AI removes that, It has not improved your content. It has just made it more acceptable and less memorable. And that, for me, is the real point of today. The business that gets better results from AI are not always going to be the ones using it the fastest. Everyone has speed now. It's no longer a competitive advantage. Everybody can do everything much quicker. The advantage is having your recognizable voice, your clear point of view, with real examples you've built, with useful proof and the confidence to sound just like you. So yes, use AI, use it to analyze, use it to challenge and create your structures and to speed things up. That's all really important. But do not use it to bypass your thinking. Because if your content starts to feel too polished, too generic, or too far removed from how you actually speak, the problem is not just that people might think you used AI. The bigger problem is that they will not feel any reason to trust it, remember it, or act on it. And that is the bit that really matters. I'm actually going to put the guides that I've talked about today, I'm going to copy and paste them into the comments for you to use going forward, so that and I hope you find them useful. And if you like this content, please make sure that you like, share and subscribe, and I hope to see you again next week.